Thank you. Good afternoon, everyone, and welcome to the first professional development seminar series of this year. We're very excited today about the topic that we're and we're very excited about our speaker, who is Dr. Patricia Jones, and she's the director of the Office of Special Populations at NIA, where she leads efforts to advance the science of eliminating health disparities. She facilitates addressing health disparities through basic clinical and translational behavior and social science research. And the other thing she does in the office is that she supports developing initiatives that strengthens NIA's research and training opportunities. And one of the key things that she does in that area is that she directs the NIA Butler Williams Scholar Program for early career aging researchers. And I have to say that I am a product of that program, but when I went through the program, it was under a different name. It was NIA Summer Institute program years ago. But I know a number of outstanding scholars who have benefited from this program, and I'm just looking forward and so happy to have Dr. Jones here to talk to us today about different opportunities that can advance and eliminate health disparities. But before she joined NIA's Office of Special Population, she worked with the National Center for Advancing Translational Sciences, where she served as a health sciences administrator for the Division of Clinical Innovations. She did a number of things there. I won't go into all of them, but I will just want to acknowledge that she led a national strategic management and program evaluation initiative while simultaneously serving as a program director and project scientist for a number of awards at the NCATS. And finally, I'd just like to say that Dr. Jones comes to us, and as I was reading over the bio, I was like, that if you want to talk about being a lifelong learner, Dr. Jones is actually a lifelong learner. George and I was talking about this earlier. She has a number of degrees, and I applaud you, Dr. Jones, for getting another degree at this time. She hails her Bachelor's of Arts degree from Berkeley, a Master's of Public Health from UCLA, a Master's of Science from University of Maryland Global Campus, her Doctorate of Public Health at Loma Linda School of Public Health, and then she's completing this year a Master's of Business Administration from University of Maryland Global Campus. Without further ado, I'd like to introduce to you Dr. Patricia Jones.
Thank you, Dr. Thorpe. So yeah, the lifelong learning, people often ask, why in the world would you torture yourself? Do you not enjoy freedom and liberation? The answer is yes. And hopefully, as I get to the end of my presentation, I like to end with a quote that really imbues the spirit and the world perspective I embrace. And hopefully it'll be a little clearer to you why I chose the path that I did and why I'm still going. So without further ado, am I able to share my screen right now?
Okay. Yes, you should be able to, Dr. Jones.
Okay,
yeah.
1 second. Let me pull this up and do this. Oh, okay. Okay. And how's that? Are you able to see?
That's right.
Yeah, that looks good. That looks good.
Fantastic. Let's rock and roll. All right. So thank you, everyone, for your time this afternoon, and Happy New Year. It feels like much longer than a full week in 2021 amidst all of the events that have been happening in the DC area. But as we move forward and embrace another year, we are happy, and I'm very thrilled to have an opportunity to share with you some additional resources that hopefully will be useful for you as you're preparing to move forward in your careers as aging researchers. The title of my presentation is providing an overview of NIA's Career Development and Training Award opportunities for your RCMAR. The talk today will not only provide an overview of our structure and our budget, but I'll review a few of our mechanisms by a particular career stage. They do vary, and there's different requirements depending on where you are in your professional trajectory. I'll say a few words about specific funding opportunities for Alzheimer's disease and Alzheimer's disease-related dementias and general aging awards. And then I'll provide a couple of pearls of wisdom that you might consider in terms of preparing a grant and some additional resources. So, as you may be aware, for many months we were in a holding pattern as the federal government in terms of our budget. And in the last few weeks, we did receive an actual FY21 budget. However, the details are still being ironed out and we are functioning with this information going forward. So I just wanted to say a bit about what was available in FY20. This illustrates the total resources available to the agency as a whole, NIH, and NIA specifically is one of 27 parts that make up NIH. We did have a little over $3.5 billion set aside for our specific institute. And these are the 4 components where the programmatic activities support the Institute's mission. DBSR, DGCG, DAB, and DN are all the various programmatic divisions that benefit from this budget allocated for NIA. In terms of appropriation, as you can see from this visualization, our appropriation has increased quite significantly, particularly in the last 6 years, 6 fiscal years. And that's largely been due to the Alzheimer's disease specific resources that Congress has allocated to our institute. Before we go into the actual mechanisms, I just wanted to kind of set the stage with some common terms and definitions that you will hear me reference, and also encourage you to visit our website regularly. As I mentioned, we just came into having a final FY21 budget. Things may change regarding the pay line, and different announcements may be reissued with a different announcement number. So we certainly want to make sure that you are apprised of all of the most current details, and the best way to do that is to check the website regularly. When we talk about ESI, we're talking about early stage investigators, and these are individuals who have not yet successfully competed as the principal investigator or project director for a substantial NIH award that's independent. And when we say independent, we're talking about an R01 or something equivalent to an R01. So what's equivalent? A DP1, a DP2, a 5, the 23, the 29, the 37, the 56, the RF1, the RL1, and a U01 are all considered equivalent levels of seniority to an R01. So if a person has not yet successfully competed and been awarded funding or within the 10-year period of their postgraduate training, they would be considered an early stage investigator, which opens up different pay lines and different mechanisms, and we'll go into that in a second. When we talk about new investigator, we're referring to a person who has not previously competed for substantial independent funding. And in terms of eligibility, we're referring to things that are related to your career, your fellowship grants, and those criteria vary differently depending on if they're NERSA fellowships or the National Research Service Award fellowships, or if there's something that's sponsored directly by the IC. Like all of those conditions and eligibility criteria you want to read carefully in the funding opportunity announcement and make sure that you are informed. And as I mentioned, NERSA, there are several types of fellowships supported under the NERSA moniker. So again, you want to take your time and review the eligibility criteria and the specific mechanisms for those. This is listed as an interim pay line. This illustration is also on our NIA website. And essentially, as you can see here, and this is by CSR, applications that go through the Center for Scientific Review, which is a separate entity within NIH. It's not within aging. So for applications that are received and processed and scored through the Center for Scientific Review that are under $500,000, these are the percentile ranges for the general pay line. And as you can see, the pay line is different for AD and ADRD resources. Again, also different by the budget amount if it's less than $500,000 or over. So this is important to know, and this is another example of where you definitely want to check the website to make sure the pay line data has not changed before you submit your application. In terms of the pay lines for applications that are reviewed by our scientific review branch, and this is not by percentile, but actual score. As you can see, the pay line is a little different for AD, ADRD. Again, the resources and the budget is different from the general aging budget, but this information is all on our website. We have a wide breadth of resources and opportunities, both within aging and across the agency as a whole. We have several funding opportunity announcements, well over 60 that are active and open right now. We have a number of announcements that are making people aware of different funding opportunity announcements. We call those NOCs. And we collaborate with other ICs to support relevant questions that may straddle 2 or more institutes, centers, or offices. So all of that information and resources are all available by accessing these various links and websites. And I'll say a few words in a little bit about concepts that have been approved by council. So for the next couple of slides, I want to focus my comments on awards that are really in this yellow box area, following graduation up through that 10-year pathway post-doctoral. And I say PhD, but of course this is a terminal degree. So whether it's a doctorate in public health or DRPH or some other terminal degree that would bring you into the aging research space, it's not limited to just PhD or MDs. Okay. So in terms of research mechanisms, which might be the best fit for you? So everyone knows the R01. It's a mechanism pretty specific to NIH as a whole. It's a standard 5-year award, no particular limit on the budget, but definitely needs to be consistent with the actual needs of the proposed project. There are mechanisms, and I've listed one here, 19070, that is specific to current topics in Alzheimer's disease. As I mentioned earlier, you definitely want to check our website and be certain that the PAR has not, that number has not changed to something different for the particular fiscal year. A slightly smaller mechanism is the R21. And it's really for research questions that may have a slightly more risk element to it, where there may not be a preponderance of data or publications supporting a particular hypothesis, but there's sufficient information to pursue a question. And you might just need a few resources or small chunk of resource to move in a particular direction. So the R21 is something to consider for a smaller, high-risk 2-year project. The R03 is our GEMSTAR project. This is for physicians, specifically those with a surgical specialty. It's very small for 2 years, but again, to build out additional research skills and capacities for those who have the early medical surgical expertise. To say a few words about the F and the K, I just wanted to highlight that for NERSA, the National Research Services Award, there are individual postdoc fellowships and there are other types, but I'll just focus right now on the F32, which is the individual. And it's really intended to benefit the early postdoc fellow. It does provide some salary support with a little bit available to cover the fringe benefits and a little bit allowed to provide support for training related expenses like making a presentation at a particular conference or collaborating in a workshop related to a research question that's germane to your work. So to find out what those actual stipend recommendations are, because they do change, you definitely want to reference the most current document, which here is 20-070. Another opportunity that takes you a little closer toward independent award status is the K99. R00. You might hear people call it the kangaroo. It's just common vernacular, but in any event, this is a mechanism that's currently announced under PA 20-188. And this is a very good pathway toward really launching a large number of careers. It's a two-phase mechanism. The K-99, you have up to 2 years of support available. There is no guarantee that you automatically will advance and receive the support for the ROO. You have to demonstrate accomplishments at particular milestones for the K-99, but should you successfully complete the work and advance into the next phase, you have up to 3 years of support available under the ROO component. Now I just want to say a few words about mentored mechanisms for early career junior faculty. I'm sorry, is there a question? Okay. In terms of the mentored awards, overall, there's some common components. They tend to be 3 to 5 years, again, typically for junior faculty, except for the K-99 ROO, which is a little bit more advanced. You definitely have to have the US citizenship or permanent residency at the time the award is being made, with the exception again of the K-99 ROO. Those requirements are a little bit different. And your time has to be committed to that specific project at 75%. The salary support range is between 75 to 100,000 a year. The research support components anywhere between 20 to 50,000 a year. And there's a separate announcement for research continuity and retention awards, and that can be found at 20-054. It's important to read the criteria related to the research continuity and retention because they're a little bit different, but that's another pathway toward research support. In terms of the K01 as a mentored research development award, this is a 5-year mechanism. It's really, really popular, second most applied K award available. It gives senior postdocs an opportunity to pursue some additional resources. And at the time that the award is made, you have to have an academic position appointed. So, and again, the citizenship and permanent residency is also a criteria. So in terms of the K01, there are oftentimes we've received questions related to eligibility, and these are just a couple of examples of some questions that we've received. Does the R21, the RO3, or the IK2 make you ineligible or disqualify you from applying for the K01 or some other type of career development award? And the answer is no. Other K and other R01s would make you ineligible for the K, but not these particular mechanisms. And other questions we've received, am I an assistant professor? If I'm an assistant professor and there's no NIH award yet, should I go ahead and apply for the K01 or the R01? And typically we prefer you to say that once you've received that R01, you do lose your ESI status, that early scientist investigator status. So you really have to take a moment and assess if this is the right strategy for your career and the timing of when you pursue the R01. And we fully appreciate that that's the golden rung award that everybody wants to strive toward. But once you kind of move into that space, there's no going back. So you have to be strategic in how you pursue your opportunities. Can I have an R01 and a K01 together? And so you can hold both mentored K and an R01 if you receive the K first. So those are some of the common questions we've received. Other types of mentored career development awards include the K25. It tends to focus on quantitative research skills being developed. And it's open for quantitative scientists who didn't have previous wet lab research backgrounds. So it's a great opportunity to build capacity in that space. The K08, which is a mentored clinical scientist research career award to support translational and clinical research activities. and the K-23 for patient-oriented research career development. So those are all very unique and specific in focus, but intended to build out additional skill sets. Some of you may have heard of the Beeson program. It's also the formal name is the K-76, named after the Paul Beeson Emerging Leaders Career Development Award in Aging. This is the funding opportunity announcement. It is open right now through February 3. It does support a diverse pool of early stage physician scientists who are committed to not only advancing aging and aging related disease and geriatric research questions, but also pursuing an academic career in patient oriented research and developing evidence of leadership receiving the initial award. These are the dollar amounts and the number of awards that are typically funded in FY20. And a few points to consider in terms of eligibility. Again, the citizenship and permanent residency is definitely a criteria. And we certainly encourage and promote individuals from underrepresented racial and ethnic groups to consider applying to this program, and individuals with physical limitations as well. So those were just a few of the common K and R and F awards that you often hear about. There are some other opportunities that focus on diversity or promote individuals from underrepresented minority communities moving into their careers, one of which is the diversity supplement. It is intended to promote diversity in health-related research and is currently open under PA 21-071. And oftentimes people ask, well, do you have to be a graduate student? And the answer is no. This mechanism will support anyone from the high school age who is curious and aspiring to establish a career and wants to have training and opportunity to further determine if this is truly the path for them, all the way through your traditional graduate education. But the intention is to broaden the pathway for underrepresented minority researchers and make a more robust biomedical workforce. The second opportunity is the reentry supplement. These are all administrative supplements, I should add, to a parent. So the reentry supplement is intended to promote reentry into the biomedical and behavioral research career. Oftentimes, I co-chair the NIA workforce committee for diversity and reentry supplements. And oftentimes we will see applications of individuals who've had personal life challenges, had familial obligations and responsibilities, had to take time off from the traditional academic pathway to get a job and want to come back into the biomedical research space. And these dollars help bridge that career path and get them back on a track where they can move forward toward being an effective and prepared researcher. Another resource that sometimes people may not fully appreciate as a tool or an implementation mechanism for promoting diversity, but the loan repayment program is actually quite effective in doing that. And it does repay part of the educational loan debt a scholar may have who agrees to conduct and complete relevant research for at least 2 years of their career at a 50% or a greater level of effort. And it will pay up to $50,000 a year in the loan debt. But this can be a huge, huge benefit for underrepresented minority applicants who are looking to have some opportunities to move forward and not be burdened with the school loan. So now I want to say a few words about specific resources that support Alzheimer's disease and AD-RD activities. The general areas of science supported have to do with the frontotemporal disorders, Lewy body dementia, vascular contributions to impairment and dementia that are observed, and mixed etiology dementias. There are a number of mechanisms. The key mechanisms currently open are related to R01s for Alzheimer's, R21, We do have an early stage clinical trials for the spectrum of Alzheimer's disease open, and looking at late stage clinical trials as well, and drug development, Alzheimer's drug development programs under a U01 mechanism. So those are the 4 or 5 flagship AD-RD mechanisms. There's some others that look specifically at bioinformatics and informatics strategies used to advance the drug repositioning and therapeutic development pathway. That's under 20-156. And for people who may have an interest in data harmonization around genetics, epidemiology, and general clinical data to enhance the therapeutic target discovery process, there is a mechanism that supports that effort. And there's also the non-invasive neurostimulation, as well as the Alzheimer's disease research centers, which are P mechanisms. Some additional resources to consider are smaller research grants for the next generation of researchers, which includes systems biology, basic science, existing data sets being leveraged, and looking at cognitive systems analysis, again, addressing genetic and phenotypic data questions. So as you can imagine, and you might recall, I showed early into my presentation the appropriation slide illustrating that we had quite a bit of an uptick in our AD-RD budget, but we do have a robust portfolio of research that we support in general aging that's not specific to AD. And some of those activities are related to early stage translational aging research questions or bench to bedside. We have a mechanism that supports the R21, where you do your proof of concept work, and if successful, transfer into the R33 portion, where you would expand and scaffold up on the preclinical development of that activity. We also have a few announcements under an R03, R21, and R01 mechanisms looking at underactive bladder and other related conditions for aging. There is research infrastructure development for interdisciplinary aging studies, again, using the R21, R33 paired mechanism. We have multidisciplinary studies of HIV/AIDS and aging. And we also have awards supporting the development of research education resources intended to facilitate geriatrics related translational and clinical scientists in their activities. So there's a wide breadth of resources available that are not AD specific. These are examples of crossover funding opportunity announcements where we may answer questions that are not squarely limited to just aging, but may also have a cancer or some other institute or center's shared interest. So this is something that NCI is sponsoring, looking at aging and cancer initiating cells. There's NCCIH, which is our complementary health center, looking at music and health. Our neuroscience and mental health has both are supporting the brain initiatives that we collaborate on. And if you notice, among the traditional mechanisms listed, there's also the STTR and SBIR mechanisms supported for commercial concepts. And then there's also the environmental influences on aging, looking at weather and disaster and those effects that may impact aging processes. In terms of diversity initiatives, I mentioned earlier a couple of the key administrative supplements that are available, but I want to come back and say a little bit more about diversity initiatives because there are some other mechanisms available for pre-doctoral as well as postdoctoral. So the R36 is a dissertation award for those who are not yet finished with your doctoral program and aspire to build out a footprint in the aging research space. There's also the diversity recruitment retention mechanism available as an R24, and there's supplements that do promote diversity in general. And this is a general announcement under 20-222. I want to draw your eye to Butler Williams. Dr. Thorpe mentioned in his opening comments that he is an alum of the predecessor to this, which was the Summer Institute on Aging Research. Butler Williams is a very, very popular training program, and it is moving into its 35th year. We will be opening up applications for the 2021 cohort this month, so please do check the website. It is intended to attract early career faculty scientists who are aspiring to become aging researchers. And in that training program, we review not only the breadth of science that NIA supports, but we take time to really drill down and address health disparities. What are they, and how the health disparities framework might be utilized in your research to conceptualize variables and activities that may not have been altogether obvious to you as a researcher developing your hypothesis, creating your surveys and instruments, or developing metrics. So the framework is a very useful tool that can be applied across the research spectrum, whether it's preclinical animal all the way through population level public health. So I encourage you, if you're eligible, to consider the Butler Williams Scholars Program. It will be virtual again this year. We did have it virtually last year, and it will be 3 days. So we look forward to another engaging and exciting opportunity to share and learn from each other. So as we move into FY21, we have some concepts that have been approved, and I just want to share these with you to give you a sense of what, as you're thinking about applications, what general topics might resonate with you. So these are some of the concepts: early stage investigator research with non-human primates, the brain aging, cellular scale connectome, osteoimmunology, networks to develop behavioral and social science research in aging, adherence to healthful behaviors, and early phase clinical trials that target age-related mechanisms. So a pretty broad swath of activities could, as you might imagine, align with these areas, but these are approved concepts. So I know I covered quite a bit, and as you're distilling the details and trying to envision what might be a good fit for you and where you are in your career, I always like to share a few tips related to grantsmanship that could be helpful. In terms of identifying utilizing your collaborators, this is super important. You want to really think about building that team of reviewers who think like an extramural reviewer, who can help you with writing objectively and telling a complete story, and help you kind of get out of your head and think through, how do I tell the story of why my science is important and this hypothesis can be useful to the general field in a way that informs the naive reader. In terms of your institutional officials, you have to also be mindful that as much as we value and invest in the skills of the individual investigator, at the end of the day, the money goes to the institution. And the institution is the awardee, not the PI. You are the steward, but the institution is legally responsible for the award. And also to be mindful of deadlines. Details do change, and so you want to certainly be mindful so that you can plan accordingly and have time to move your application through the appropriate departments and channels for approval and have it submitted on time. NIH staff are always listed as points of contact by program and by grants management. Don't be afraid to reach out to either. They're there to answer questions and make sure you put forward the most complete, thorough document that you can. So certainly utilize those contacts named in the funding opportunity announcement to put together your application as best as possible. And use the internet. The internet has a plethora of resources posted, and lots of tutorials, all over the internet that can help you. And of course, you want to get your application in early. Read the FOA. The fine print does matter. And if you have questions, reach out and ask. I mentioned this already, but I can't say it enough. You want to tell your story in a succinct, coherent fashion. It's important to know where people start, but we really want to get to the point and be clear about what is it that you're proposing to explore with the taxpayers' resources, and how will this award help you answer an important question. You want to clearly delineate what is significant and what is novel in the proposed study, and not reinventing the wheel, and how you will scaffold and build upon information that may be known, or if it's not known, why this work is important at this time. Of course, you want your specific aims to be hypothesis driven and not broadly descriptive. So this is just a couple of criticisms to keep in mind that we've heard through the review process, that the application is unfocused or too diffuse or overly ambitious. You want the reviewer to walk away understanding, okay, this person certainly has a good grasp of the field, of the work, of the time, of the breadth of skill their team will need to have to help them answer the question. And they've done as best of a job as possible to project a cogent plan going forward. These are just a few resources. They're not unique to NIA. Many parts of NIH have tips on writing effective grants that are useful, and I encourage you to review them from NCI, NIAD, General Medicine. They all have different resources available that could help put together a good application. These are a few other resources that I mentioned for new and early stage investigators, which might be of particular interest, and that's on our website at NIA. And we also make available a few sample applications to give you a general visualization of what the components might look like as a full package. If you're not already signed up to some of our blogs, this is a great way to stay informed of any policy updates or new funding opportunity announcements or concepts that have recently been approved. All of that we put available through these various social media platforms, and we encourage you to sign up and stay connected so that you know what's happening in real time. And so I will leave you with this statement from Dr. Marion Wright Edelman. Dr. Thorpe commented on being a lifelong student, and this quote really sums up how I live my life and how I view education. And as much as I've spent the past 30 plus minutes walking through resources that will help maximize your education, I view education as a tool for improving the lives of other people and for leaving our community and our world better than we found it. And so to that end, I will stop and leave my contact information. I'm happy to talk to any of you individually, and I can be reached at patricia.jones@mail.nih.gov. Thank you.
Wow, thank you so much, Dr. Jones, for that outstanding presentation. And I totally enjoyed the quotes you gave us. I think it's very befitting given the events that we're enduring at this time. Now I want to open it up for questions and answers that I would like to ask. If you have the bandwidth capability on your computer, if you ask your question, if you turn on your camera, please. I'll start with a question that I wanted to ask about. On the slide that you talked about, the NIA reviewed applications, those numbers were not percents, were they? What do those numbers represent?
So the first slide was for a Center for Scientific Review. That was the percentile. Okay. The second slide was NIA reviewed, and those were scores, actual score numbers.
Okay, all right, thank you.
Mm-hmm. Wow. And the take-home message is that we tend to be a little more generous toward the early scientist side, that's really the take-home message.
Yeah, I know.
You saw
I
that.
saw it there. That's why I said, wow.
That.
When I said, wow, when I figured out what those numbers were. Yeah,
Yes.
that is really, that's awesome. And for those who are studying or all of plan to continue, which we highly encourage you to, the AD/RD money is really, really, is really where you're in a sweet spot now when you're collecting data, generating preliminary data to move forward to these other mechanisms. I just wanted to say that based on the slide that I saw that you just showed. And notice that Dr. Jones had a column for AD/RD, which was vastly different from the regular NIA scores from NIA funding. So yeah.
Dr. Gallo?
Yeah.
Hi, that was really excellent. I wanted to ask you a question that, well, actually I have a few of them, but I'll ask you one that I get asked a lot, or it's my bias. It's the K99.
Yeah, the kangaroo.
Is because what I often tell people, which probably is wrong, that it's kind of set up if you have a lab, right? You get some preliminary stuff, you're at Hopkins, wherever you are, and then you got that data. It's easy to go to Texas or another place now with your preliminary data and set up a lab. The point I'm making is like you go and you have a job, you can have a job offer, and now you have funding for the 0-0 part of it. But what I'm getting at is if you do community-based work, then it's not so easy to make a transition to a new place.
Oh,
is that true?
I don't know about that. I don't know. I certainly can inquire across our various divisions.
But you understand what I'm saying, right?
I do. You're speaking to fields, professional fields, and if the mechanism lends itself better to the T1, T2 side of the research spectrum versus T3, T4 type of research. I don't know if that's true, but I certainly can ask and inquire within our behavioral social research and neuroscience and clinical gerontology groups to see if that has been observed or not. I don't know.
Otherwise, what do you differentiate in terms of, other types of Ks? The other things I was wondering, I'll just get them out. You can answer whichever ones you want. One is if you have intervention development, some institutes have an R34 mechanism kind of just for that. And what would you suggest for in that? Often I guess the R21. The other one is international. How do you think about international works related to AD? What do you
mean, how do I think about what
I mean
do we support?
Are there mechanisms specifically for that, or if you go in?
So all of the mechanisms are on our website, and there are some projects that are supported by different things that may not have been covered in my presentation. As I've said at the outset, we fund and support quite a bit, and depending on where you are in your career, I would focus more on some mechanisms over the others.
Yeah.
So I didn't cover everything, and I don't want to mislead and suggest that this PowerPoint presentation is the sum total of what we covered. It's a snapshot. So you definitely want to look at the NIA website to see which activities and codes are open right now for intervention development. And yes, we do have awards that have collaborators that may be in different parts of the world. So it doesn't necessarily mean that the money is going to that foreign institution directly, but their partnerships may be beyond domestic.
Yeah.
And then all of that is spelled out in your mechanism as well as to in terms of what's allowed. And
yeah. Thanks.
I have a question. Thank you so much. My question is, since I primarily do health services research, I have not thought of the NIA as the place to go for that. And could you correct me if I'm wrong? I typically go to ARC, but I am a geriatrician. I should be going to NIA.
Are you?
Yeah.
Oh, we have a home for you.
Help me, please.
We have a home for you. So yes, again, we fund a broad swath of activities, and it really is a function of your research question and your, what you're proposing as a strategy. But I would imagine our geriatrics division might be a place you would consider. And it could be that depending on what it is, the health services question that you're asking, it may also align with our behavioral and social research division. But we have activities funded right now related to caregiving, nursing homes, skilled living. We have collaboratory partnerships. I mean, there's so much under the NIA roof. I don't want you to feel that as a practitioner that there is no space for you. And I say that because we also support some pragmatic trials as well. I don't know, I didn't hear anyone say anything about implementation science yet, but when you mentioned health services, it certainly struck a chord that may be a path of interest. And we do support and partner with other parts of NIH that supports pragmatic trials with a research services question in mind. So we have a home for you.
So just to make sure I understand, because this sounds really helpful. If the outcomes are things like utilization or systems improvements or quality of care, as opposed to more clinical outcomes, that is still something that NIA would find relevant?
Yes, it's really a function of studying the mechanism, the funding opportunity announcement, to see if your question aligns with the nature of the research it would be supporting. But the Institute, philosophically, yes.
Okay.
Yes. I say that because I know that oftentimes people walk away with the perception that certain institutes, NIA included, may only be interested in laboratory work or preclinical. That is not true. And the 4 divisions are a testimony to the breadth and the diversity of science and fields. And so I would encourage you to really take a moment to just look at the different division descriptions. Okay. They all have PDFs of their brochures on the website, where you can see what branches are within each division. And I'm pretty sure you'll find a branch that may align with what you're looking for.
So just so I make sure I fully understand, this is my last question. So how would I decide whether to apply to NIA versus AHRQ, which is where I typically go? Like, is there a way do you all share or co-fund?
They are a different agency altogether under HHS. It doesn't preclude us collaborating with them, but I can't speak or point to a particular FOA that says the money is shared between the two. Can't do that. But I will say, as far as how do we go about determining what's a good fit, it's largely the same process for any other IC, in terms of how would you determine which IC you would submit your application to. And it gets down to mission. Our mission is about promoting the health of older persons. So if your question is a question that is going to improve the life or answer an important question among older persons, that would more than likely be something aging would consider. And it may dovetail and be an older person's question and something else. And so there may be another IC that does, we have set aside funds that we collaborate with them on. And so those resources, all that information is on our website, but there are ways to pursue broader interests with an endpoint of improving the lives of older persons.
Very helpful. Thank you so much.
You're quite welcome.
Any advantage to dual assignment? Like if you're doing something in cancer, say, does that come up much?
What do you mean by advantage?
Advantage in the review process, to get.
I don't know about that. I don't know about that. I can't imagine. I don't know. I can't answer that one. Sorry. I can certainly ask our review branch what their experience has been for the NIA reviewed applications.
Yeah, just wondering, it comes up sometimes.
Yeah, and they collaborate, of course, with the Center for Scientific Review, as many of the R's go through that pathway.
So Joe, from what I know from reviewing at NIA is that we don't get a lot of the dual scientists with the NIA reviewing at NIA. You see a lot of them through CSR. I've been doing it for like 6 years.
Right, that's true. Right.
I've been doing it for 6 years for NIA. I haven't seen one come in like that. Right.
Yeah,
but I don't know about an advantage.
Oh no, yeah, absolutely. Because
so we could ask our scientific review branch if I can't imagine that one does better than the other. I think it really comes down to what is your question, and is that question supported better by two institutes with expertise in those areas or another?
Yeah.
I want to be mindful because I know Dr. Jones has another meeting to get to at 2 o'clock. And I know in the Zoom world, we tend to ignore travel time. So I want to try to, we just want to put them all together and just show up and then look crazy while we're late. But we want to afford her the opportunity to get there. And we're 7 minutes away. I think we have time for maybe one more question because I want to make sure I give her an opportunity to transition and whatever else she needs to do before she makes it to her next meeting.
While you're thinking, I just want to promote Butler Williams. The applications will be opening up very, very soon. That process will be opening up. It will be this summer, and it will be for 3 days. So if you are eligible, we really strongly encourage you to apply.
My name is Cheney Fabius. I am a Butler Williams alum, so
what's the hand wave?
Yeah, it hadn't changed in years. It hadn't changed in years. So I think
it's not going to change.
Right.
But no, it was a very good program. But I was just going to speak to Alicia's point, and I just saw that the Dementia Care Summit recommendations came out from this past summer's meeting. And so there may be some answers to your question, Alicia, concerning like this, because I focus on the direct care workforce for older adults. And so my concern was similar, like, would NIA be specifically interested in outcomes related to the direct care worker? And so some of
caregiving is important. Yes.
Yeah. So there's some insight, Alicia, and I can share the link because I just received it this morning.
And I'm happy to refer you on to our colleagues in the Behavioral and Social Research Division, where they can have a more detailed conversation around caregiving initiatives and activities that are supported by NIA. Some of that is funded through that division. Other parts may be funding different activities, but the caregiver research question is certainly relevant. So yes. Thank you for sharing that.
You're welcome.
Well, Dr. Jones, it's 1:55, and I'm gonna hold true to my promise to you early on. I'd like to say thank you so much for providing this outstanding information to us. It was really, really very helpful. And we thank you for spending some time with us today. I ask all of us to join me and give you a round of applause. Thank you so much.
Oh, I appreciate that. Thank you. I'm happy to have spent time with each of you. Happy New Year, and look forward to our paths crossing either virtually or physically.
Thank you so much. Have a good day, and everybody else have a good weekend.
Bye.
Bye-bye.